Hi everyone! Back to the Beatles 150 series, and this song is number 49. So, getting so close to the 50 mark, 1/3 of the way through. Well, today's song is You Won't See Me, and I have a few things to read about it. Let's see what they are. The genre is pop rock. In the later months of 1964, the Beatles were feeling the immense pressure of fulfilling the deadline to complete their year-end British album, Beatles for Sale. I guess I've done that album already, haven't I? A 9-hour recording session was scheduled on October 18th of that year to knock out as many songs as possible. Now, as the deadline for their latest album, Rubber Soul, was approaching in the later months of 1965, just 1 year later, the group scheduled what became a 13-hour recording session to complete it. You know, I feel like these guys really had a work ethic, didn't they? Maybe even a little bit workaholic. But anyway, they were putting the time in, and they have been putting the time in for a long time. For this final marathon session, Paul McCartney came up with a song that was apparently finished at the last minute, entitled You Won't See Me. Approximately 5.5 hours later, just 5.5 hours later, the song was complete and deemed good enough to be positioned as the third track on the album. Paul, was John Lennon's only response when asked about the songwriting of You Won't See Me in 1980. It was 100% me, as I recall, Paul agrees, but I am always quite happy to give John a credit because there's always a chance that on the session he might have said that would be better. How generous. You Won't See Me is about a crisis in McCartney's relationship with his then-girlfriend Jane Asher. Oh, I already listened to his song where he was kind of going on about Jane Asher, and so here's another one. Still in the same relationship difficulty, it seems. Asher, who was shortly due to turn 20, was refusing to comply with McCartney's wishes that she stay at home and put his interests first. Should we say it sounds like McCartney was a bit of a traditionalist? What many may not realize is that this song was groundbreaking in a whole different way. In an age where the standard pop song usually didn't tread past the 3-minute mark, You Won't See Me clocked in at an unprecedented 3 minutes and 22 seconds, or 3:25 in mono, which was the longest Beatles track up to that point. Really? You know, I haven't even noticed. It's true. I don't think I've heard a long Beatles song in this chronological series yet. But I didn't notice that none had gone past that. While it dwarfs in size next to later accomplishments such as Hey Jude and I Want You, probably also the two later Beatles pieces I listened to, She's Leaving Home, is probably longer than 3 minutes. I'd say I'm pretty certain. As well as Strawberry Fields Forever. Not to mention Jethro Tull's full album-length masterpiece, Thick as a Brick. Oh, so that was about the same time too. And I know that one is somewhere on my list of future pieces to listen to. It did show that the Beatles were eager to push the envelope in any way they were allowed to do. Well, groundbreaking, huh? Traditionalist, but at least he's breaking new ground in length of songs. Let's see how this sounds. What did you say? 5.5 hours worth of work? And then it's ready to go? Well, I guess there have been a few filler songs along the way in this journey so far, which were interesting in some way or other, but I commented along on several of them that they felt kind of formulaic and filler style. Fine, nothing wrong with them. They had some really worthwhile things to dig into. If I hadn't have been told that this was a last-minute add-on, I wouldn't have guessed it. This has so much going on that is so engaging and exciting to listen to. There's some really great lines to follow, and the whole texture and feel of it is so dynamic. I guess I won't comment much on the lyrics because I seem to be too modern of a person to really have much appreciation for Paul's attitude. I mean, I feel like, okay, what is this, 100 years ago or something? Well, I'll just allow him to be a product of his age at that time, and we'll leave it at that. So, lyrics aside, the music. What a fun piece of music. I loved, well, the first thing I noticed was the bass when the intro entered. And it kept up its lively activity all the way through the piece, kind of marching around on stilt legs, you know, bop, 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 rather confidently, boldly, a very big presence. And yeah, I guess I would say it's like a kid on stilts marching around the yard. They feel so tall and important, and they can look down on everybody. The bass kind of gives that quality, doesn't it? Fun. And then this ooh la la descending. I noticed and I really enjoyed all the directional activity in this piece. I could even apply a sort of symbolism to it and say that in a way it represents what's happening in their relationship. They're going different directions, you know. The music goes, one part goes up, the other goes down. They're not moving in tandem, and it's like two different lives which just aren't really able to focus the same direction. So we hear it in the music, don't we? We hear these descending lines, we hear some ascending lines, we hear one and then the other, or sometimes both at the same time. It's great fun. And I guess I'd like to go back and explore that a bit more deeply. So let's do that. Isn't that such a fireworks opening with the crash and the bass, and well, there's piano in there too, but it's the bass that really stands out to me. Yada dum bum, yada dum, and this then walking down. I mean, yada dum. I guess it starts here. And then, of course, being bass, it's going to be down here. And then... Isn't that so arresting in the first few seconds of the piece? And everything else just crashing in helps to enliven it and make it stand up. But it's just a simple outlining of the chord, isn't it? But the way it just comes straight in, and we don't realize it. I didn't realize it in my first listen, but that happens to be the figure that the bass uses throughout the most of the piece, and that ends up being a real feature of the piece. But it's right there at the beginning, and it grabs us. I like what Ringo is doing with the drums in this one. Sometimes he stays in the background and just adds kind of predictable material to help hold things together. I've heard people refer to him as the human metronome, and he has an incredible sense of beat. And he also has a really great instinct for what serves the piece, how to add something without really taking over. But one of the things I enjoyed in this song is how it felt like every single instrument, every single voice was kind of a little more free in their creativity. They took moments to just play a little bit. And Ringo, right off the bat, he's doing a lot of variety, and it's not just a metronome setting the groove, setting the beat. It's more about this timbre, this texture, this pitch, this rhythm, here, there, all around, and it changes quite a bit. And then, of course, there's the guitar, which just has these little beep, syncopated beep, beep, and, well, I've got the score in front of me today, so we can actually start marking some of these things and noticing them. So the bass is this thing here. Actually, let's make it go a little bit longer because the intro. Ya da da bum, da ba bum, and it's kind of right there. And then we have this guitar. Well, it's shown in just a little quarter note, like this. Isn't it funny how in music notation, what you see on the paper doesn't come near expressing all that you hear? So we just have a quarter note, which could easily just be beep, or on the harp, ding. But that's not at all what the guitar sounds like. It's the particular tonality and articulation of the instrument. Deet, deet, deet. But this is where it's coming in. It's always syncopated on the offbeat. And then another thing which is present here, and we kind of hear it in the background, and it becomes more noticeable that it's a part of the fabric of the piece as we progress. But in the beginning, because the bass caught my ear so much, I didn't even notice it at first. But that is the piano. And believe it or not, the piano is present right at the beginning too. Somehow everything else is so magnetic that the piano doesn't stand out at first, but it's there. And then as we're listening and we start listening for the piano, we can start hearing, and suddenly we realize, oh, there's some chromaticism already present. And as I said, when I wanted to go back and listen, these lines going different directions are one of the things for me that interest me and I want to pay attention to. Did I mention that they're mostly chromatic? There's a lot of chromaticism. Maybe I should just refresh our memories on what is chromatic. So when we have a diatonic scale is just, well, we're in the key of A here, so that's your do, re, mi scale. When we do something chromatic, to express it most simply, I would say on the guitar, you are simply playing every single fret along the way. On the piano, you're playing every single key along the way. That's chromatic. Can descend as well. It can be a long line. It can be just 3 notes. And then suddenly we recognize it's chromatic because of the distance between the notes. And if we want to get really technical, then we call them semitones or half steps. And it's a whole string of them, 3 or more. That's what we hear in a lot of these lines. And if we look closely, we see it right away showing up in the piano, this little bit of chromaticism, which in some earlier Beatles songs, I even talked about cross relations. We have something kind of like that here because we have a D sharp right here, which is featured in there. And then we walk down to the C sharp, back up to the D sharp, and then we walk to the D natural, right between. What does that sound like? We have D sharp, we walk down to the C sharp, okay, that's fine, and then we go to D natural. And suddenly we feel this chromatic hint. And of course, the piano is really playing with this. In fact, maybe I should put my score up here so we can play off of it for a little bit. Careful of the guitar above my head. Right, and we'll just go ahead and start at the beginning here because it's worth noticing these details as we start out. So the piano, I'm starting right at this point here with the piano. And we have A. You heard what was happening there as we go through from A to, and then, and that's what we go to next is a D. It's a chord progression, but it's the first hint of chromaticism, of moving in these semitones throughout the piece, and we hear it in the piano. That's a dominant 7 moment, which kind of pulls at our heartstrings a little bit. Right there. It's a little bit outside of the key because this is our home A, right? But we're moving around. The Beatles take us places. And so right now this is serving as our dominant 7, the 5 of D. We still haven't heard the long chromatic lines yet, but they're coming in. And all of these little moments, these little things are setting us up, kind of sensitizing us, preparing us. And at the same time, I love the textural variety of what the instruments have set up here in this first verse. So act your age. And I said we hadn't heard the long chromatic lines yet, but we just got to hear. And this 7 that I pointed out, well, let me bring the score back here. Again, we're looking at the piano part. And this is where it says we have lost. And in that moment, the piano starts and lands right here with that A7 chord. Now listen to what's happening. And then it moves. And then what did we just hear? In the piano part. And as I said, the first time through, it didn't jump out to me so much because I was so taken by everything else and all the activity. But now, this second time through, suddenly I recognize that is the first time that we hear that descending chromatic line, which is then picked up by the voices, and we're getting to that. You won't see me. Well, remember, I said going different directions. The piano was just descending. And now we have you won't see me in the voices climbing upwards. 2 different directions. Their lives are diverging, aren't they? And this is another chromatic line, this time ascending. C sharp, D sharp. I don't even know which camera to look at today. I'm sorry. We have 3 cameras set up. But anyway, I'll look here. You won't see me. Actually, it's a double chromaticism, isn't it? Not quite. Not quite chromatic there. But you hear that in the voices, right? We have lost. Right. And so, as I said, the piano was kind of the harbinger of this vocal line coming up. And probably most of us, I mean, I didn't notice the piano the first time I heard it. Probably most of us didn't whenever we first heard this song. But we certainly heard those ooh la la, didn't we? And whether or not we picked up on what the piano was doing to prepare us for it, when those came in, we were probably all, ooh la la, that's amazing. And I still feel like for a 5.5-hour job, this piece is incredibly detailed. If you won't... And so, of course, the chord changed, and so everything had to adjust, but we still hear ooh la la la, and it's still the same chromaticism, just starting on a different pitch. In spite of all that, that's not the only thing happening. Everything else instrumentally is still just as dynamic around it. And so we end up feeling like there's this complex interaction going between voice and instruments and these ooh la las with the melody. By the way, I noticed this is one of those Beatles pieces where everything is in the melody is chopped up in small bits, isn't it? We have lost the time that was so hard to find, and I will lose my mind. Kind of fragmented. It would be kind of disappointing if there weren't something to hold it all together. There are many things holding it together. But one of the things that works so well with this, texturally, vocally, is that the verse is so fragmented rhythmically and spatially, time, gaps in the flow of the melody. And so when the ooh la la la's come in, we suddenly feel like they're adding a smoothness to it that we were missing. And it rounds out everything and fills in those gaps with another voice. It's so great. And I love the progression of the harmonies here, kind of building us up to this intense climax. At the same time, this is a place where I enjoy what Ringo's doing with the percussion. You almost feel like they're going to arrive. If I knew what I was missing. There we go. And as it's taking us up through this climax, which takes us through the B7 and then going on to the D and the E7, and we end up, if I knew what I was missing, we feel like it's going to go to A, but what do? They play a little trick on us. They don't take us all the way there. You see? Instead of taking the melody to the A, they take us down. Though the days... Well, it starts on A, but it doesn't really arrive on A, does it? Missing A. No. Missing. Da, da, da. And then after that, then we have the backing voice giving us the A. Ooh, listen to it. So it's a sort of delayed gratification moment, which in a piece that carries us along and builds up this wonderful smoothness and progression. Well, speaking of the lyrical content and the whole topic, delayed gratification might be worth considering, if you're in a relationship difficulty like that. Just, you have to be patient, and you might not get exactly what you want right this instant. Well, at least you could pull it off in the music. Here we go. And this time around, it's even gotten a little bit more complicated because now we have this chromatic ooh la la la. Let's see if we can mark this here visibly. So we have the chromatic line ooh la 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 in this general area, and you see there are two notes, and I'm trying to only mark the lowest of them. Why? Because the upper one is that A, which we had to wait for a little bit, but now it's going on and on and on and on through all these harmony changes in these verses, and we still have A on the top. Listen to the voices there. And if you like to sing harmony and sing along, but you're not great at singing harmony, well, all you have to do is hang on to the A and you will feel like you're just part of the whole process here. Listen. You get the idea, right? Everything is diverging, different directions, staying here, moving down. And all of this time, what did I say? This bass really caught my ears and I've hardly given it any commentary time. This bass is, as I said, strikes me as walking on stilts. Kind of bold, confident, joyful, active, walking around, enjoying taking these big steps everywhere. Yes, well, he's giving it this very confident, kind of cocky feeling. You know, if you imagine an adolescent kid who's just built themselves a pair of wooden stilts and they've learned how to balance, they're up on their tall wooden legs, looking down at everybody, and well, isn't that kind of what's going on in this song? He's looking down, he's like, stop behaving like a little child. I need you to fall in line with me. And I happen to be the grown-up here, and I'm going to tell you how things ought to go. And this bass kind of gives that character, doesn't it? Did you notice what happened in the drums there? They kind of walked down too. That's where it was. Dum bum 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 bum. This little t t t t t. It sounds kind of like what you would hear in a marching band, doesn't it? T t t t t t t t t t. Left, right. T t t t t t t t t. And this is not really a march, is it? It's far more than a march. But to have that little t t t t t kind of reins it in and says, okay, all you guys going here, here, everywhere, everywhere. Let's just kind of keep you all in the same general vicinity and kind of keep things moving together as a unit. It gives that impression of, okay, he's shall I say herding chickens? Listen. And in that moment, knew what I was missing, and the voices underneath weaving their own line. You know, in case you're not very familiar, this is one of the things that we musicians find so attractive about Baroque music, specifically contrapuntal music, like a lot of what Bach wrote, where every voice has its own direction and its own life, and they manage to go all different places and live their own lives, and somehow the music comes out sounding fabulous. And there's enough of this in here. That's why we find it so engaging and interesting, whether we are listening to it for the 100th time, the 1000th time, or the first time. There's always something to catch our attention, and there are so many different things on which we can focus that we can listen to it dozens of times in a row and notice something different or give our attention to something different each time. It's the kind of music that offers you a lot. Extra calling out in the voices here. It gives a little bit of a casual, impromptu feel. And finally, as it starts to fade out, we suddenly notice the piano just a little bit more as it's fading out. Yeah? Now you can hear the piano a little bit more. Dee 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 dee. What a great, fun piece of music. If it were me, I would say he needs to go put some different lyrics to it that are a little bit more, I don't know, comfortable for the modern age. But this was back in a different time, a different era, and it's interesting that this seems to be another one. Didn't John write one about his relationship troubles? What was it called? And he was he was very bitter. You're cheating on me, or I saw the light.
No reply.
That's it. So it seems like John wrote No Reply, and now this one, it's like the two guys are getting inspiration from each other, or at least going through the same phase of life. Well, they were not too far from the same age, right? So naturally. But another pair where they each have their own take on the troubles. No Reply strikes me as far more vindictive and mean-spirited. This is kind of going through the whole range, right? Everything from shaming and guilt-tripping to the end where it's more broken-hearted. But the intensity and the liveliness of the music is what attracts me to it. And I would probably end up singing the lyrics just because it's fun to sing along to this piece, even though I don't particularly approve of that sort of attitude, male or female. So, what a fun piece. Number 49. Let's see what 50 holds. I'll see you soon.